Hey everybody, welcome back to Direct Focus. We're continuing our journey through the directorial career of the amazing Steven Spielberg. Recent episodes have seen some of Spielberg's biggest and most famous hits. This episode, we'll be watching 1989's Always, a smaller movie both in scope and in recognition as far as the Spielberg resume is concerned.
Tanker base! We got a situation here! Sector K! We're cooking! Let's go!
You magnificent pagan god!
Of course reply something here inside.
So tell me you love me. Tell me. Oh, tell me.
Where'd you get that oil on your face?
Where?
Well, it's here. Look at it. It's terrible.
Thanks.
Someday you'll find all who love are blind.
A life of danger.
My engine's on fire! Can you believe that? And I was in such a good mood.
A land of fire.
Pete! That dive is way too steep!
They thought their world had ended.
I know you can't see me,
It had only just begun.
but I'm right here.
From director Steven Spielberg. Always.
Personally, I had never seen this movie until it came up for Direct Focus. Modern movie audiences always seem to be complaining about Hollywood having a run out of ideas and just rehashing the same old thing. Remakes are nothing new. Always is technically a remake of a 1943 film called A Guy Named Joe. The original was a World War II movie that focused on the fantastical elements of the human connection over the war. Both Richard Dreyfuss and Spielberg loved the movie and bonded over it together while making Jaws. They'd throw lines from the movie at each other and talk about how great remaking it would be. With an update and a drastic setting change, Spielberg preserved the overall plot and put his own spin on the charming love story between Dreyfuss's Pete and Holly Hunter's Dorinda. The relationship is what sells the movie. The fantasy and afterlife elements go down pretty easy as you wait for the characters to resolve what was unsaid in the time that was taken from them. The trailer and general synopsis aren't exactly wrong, but they do come across as a bit misleading. The pilot Pete has to help out is part of the story, but not one you'll necessarily be invested in. It's the scenes between Dreyfuss and Hunter alone that you follow. The big movie-defining event doesn't really happen until almost halfway through the whole runtime. Shifting the balance of the typical three-act structure makes the movie feel a bit long. It's hard to complain about the choice, since selling a very real relationship and building the characters pays off through Spielberg's master hand in his medium. Richard Dreyfuss was never the first name that came to mind when thinking about leading man in a romantic movie. He shows he's a true actor and delivers. John Goodman also deserves a mention for being the best friend of the lead, though his character is sadly underutilized. Another cast member that absolutely has to be mentioned is Audrey Hepburn. One of the most famous names coming out of classic Hollywood, Hepburn does a good job in her limited role. The role was written for Sean Connery, but the legendary actor was unavailable. Spielberg went for Hepburn as a second. A strange change in direction, but one that can't be argued with. Always was the last role Hepburn would do. She retired from acting after this movie and died just 4 years later. She was paid $1 million for her part in the movie. 100% of that salary was donated to UNICEF. More legendary names were almost tied to the project. Spielberg approached Paul Newman and Robert Redford to take on the 2 lead male roles. One as Pete and one as Ted. Both men wanted to play the role of Pete, the main lead, and neither would back down. Spielberg was unable to negotiate with the two, and they all went their separate ways. Even Tom Cruise was offered the role of Ted, but turned it down. Dreyfuss had secured the lead, an oddly difficult feat given the bonding he and Spielberg had over the 1943 original. Unlike the majority of Spielberg's directorial efforts, Always was not met with open arms. Roger Ebert is still a well-known name now, but in 1989 his shadow loomed even larger over the industry. He said the movie was dated and looked on it as Spielberg experimenting more than doing the work. As you watch the movie, it's clear that this isn't Empire of the Sun or a multinational adventure story like any of the Indiana Jones movies, but it's very well made. The action scenes are exciting, the aerial stunts are impressive. Live action, archival footage, and effects on a soundstage blend together perfectly to sell the scope and terror of out-of-control wildfires. The more intimate moments are perfect examples of what framing and light control can do to a shot to sell an audience on emotion. The subtle hand the movie was made with delivers a minimalist approach of the afterlife that wouldn't ostracize any religion. It also brings a strong metaphor to Dorinda to be reborn in the fire after Pete coaches her through some truly trying events, emotionally and literally. With an estimated budget of $31 million, Always opened up to a 5th place whimper when it hit theaters. It was competing with some really big movies that are still popular today, including Back to the Future Part 2. A $3 million opening must have scared Spielberg in the studio, but Always would go on to earn over $74 million worldwide, making it a sound return on investment. While not one of the strongest movies in Spielberg's resume, Always was refreshing in its tone and surprise of seeing a smaller movie by a man whose career I've been following my whole life. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel. Also, remember to listen to Subwizard Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Check out subwizardpodcast.com for reviews, recommendations, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so leave something in the comments or drop us a line on social media. All of our accounts can be found after the video and in the show notes. Next time, we'll be covering another one of my childhood-defining favorites, 1991's Hook. The story of the adult Peter Pan, starring the magnificent Robin Williams.